After years of waiting, Legendary Edelgard is finally getting her refine and remix. And I thought, what would be more fun than putting together a tier list of the effects Legendary Edelgard needs to be busted? But in order to make sure this list is completely accurate, I need to bring on my Edelgard expert, DTM.
Yeah, hello everyone, DTM here, and I'm so excited for Legendary Edelgard's remix and refine, and yeah, super excited to be here with Oblivion to show IS what they need to do to make Edelgard the best unit in the game. So IS, I know you're listening to us. Here's some pro tips.
They absolutely looked at my Altina tier list and they were like, okay, we gotta take out some good ones, but not all of them. And that's how they chose refine. So we gotta get some good stuff for Edelgard now.
Exactly.
Also Lift too. Lift is interesting, but that's a totally different video. We'll talk about that. Okay, so let's start off with Raging Storm 2, because we have seen her remix. I didn't really expect it to get shown off this soon, but it got shown off in the Faye channel. That kind of surprised me. So we have Raging Storm 2, and it's if unit initiates combat, grants another action to unit if unit is not adjacent to an ally after combat. At start of combat, if unit's HP is greater than or equal to 25%, or unit is not adjacent to an ally, inflicts attack and defense -5 on foe, and unit makes a guaranteed follow-up attack during combat, and also if foe uses dragon or beast, offensive no follow-up. So that was a lot of words, but essentially it's what? It's Gale Force, and then you get to inflict a nice attack and defense -5, you get a guaranteed follow-up attack, and then if they're beast and dragon, you get offensive no follow-up. So we do have a few new effects here, right? Which is pretty cool, but I would love to hear what you think overall about these new effects.
So with this remix, I think it's a promising start, but it's not exactly like game breaking or unit breaking or anything like that. Like guaranteed follow-up attack and the extra stats is nice. The NFU is interesting, being only for dragons and beasts. I mean, it does fit with like the OG Raging Storm, but it's not exactly the greatest of conditions. And honestly, I was hoping for like brave effects or special acceleration or something like that to really help with the acceleration of Gale Force. But
absolutely,
it's weird. Again, like I think this is a promising start, but it really, really depends on what the weapon refine will be, whether or not it will be good or not.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, so let's start off by tiering those three new effects, right? Because from the old Raging Storm to the new one, we essentially got guaranteed follow-up attack all the time, and then some stats, and then offensive NFU. So let's start off with the guaranteed follow-up attack. Where do you think guaranteed follow-up attack would land on that on the tier list?
So guaranteed follow-up attack is interesting because it's obviously very nice, but we have gotten quite a bit of units with defensive NFU, especially from Hardy Fighter.
That's true,
and so it's honestly really hard to judge. I don't know how common Hardy Fighter is in Arena, though.
I think very.
Yeah, I can't imagine like you will face off against a lot of save units with Hardy Fighter in Arena. So like it's nice, but it's definitely not S+ or S tier in my opinion. I'd say it's either A or B.
Yeah, I was thinking like A, because like for her, right, she's not very fast unless she's built by Satachi. So I feel like guaranteed follow attack is what she would need to actually get like any kind of follow-up. So I think that's like you definitely want that on her, right? Okay, so I think A's a pretty decent spot. Okay, what about NFU? Because this is only against dragons and beasts. So I don't think this is actually that great in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it combos well with the guaranteed follow-up attack, but if it comes down to a speed check, unless you're Satachi, you're not winning that speed check.
Yeah, for me, I feel like this is like a C for me. I think this is like not great. If it was pure like always offensive no follow-up just by initiating or something like that, I think it'd be higher. I'd probably give like a B, like maybe, or even like an A maybe. But like only for dragons and beasts, I think it's like a C. What do you think?
Yeah, that condition really limits it in my opinion as well.
Yeah, I feel like they should have done something crazier for just dragon and beast instead of just offensive no follow-up.
Right, like I don't know, extra true damage or something. Like really slay those dragons and beasts, because apparently that's her thing.
Okay, so the last one is extra stats, and I think stats are like you need them, but at the same time they're not like the effect you're like typically looking for.
I agree. Like more stats are always nice, but if you were to trade like stats for an effect of your choice, you would definitely go for the effect of your choice. But like It's nice. It's cool. More power, so it's pretty average, I'd say, honestly.
You think that's like a C or like a low B maybe?
I'd say like around B, like
Okay.
low B-ish, I'd say.
I think it's
Because
kinda
again,
a
like
B too.
you need stats. There comes a point where it really depends on how much stats you actually get.
Right. Exactly, definitely. Okay, so now we're gonna start jumping into some of the other effects we'd love to see on Edelgard. I'm gonna start off with like one of the things I think she just needs, and that is slaying.
Yes.
I think slaying just like makes her Gale Force so much more consistent. And even if you don't want to use her as a Gale Forcer, like slaying just makes every special more consistent. So like I would love to see that personally.
I really, 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 really hope she gets slaying. Like, if I can literally just have one effect, it would be slaying. It would just make everything so much better. You don't have to run Quick and Pulse, which is a terrible skill, or Seal. And like, as you mentioned, like slaying is just super important these days with like specials rising in prominence. So yeah, slaying is so important.
You gotta be careful though, because she might just get like a legendary Acrofine where it's just slaying and that's it. I don't think they'll do that.
I mean, I can make her work if it's just slaying, but obviously I would like to have other things too.
Oh man, so I think this is like easy, probably S plus. I think almost. It's not the best effect, but it's like one of the most consistent. So I think I'll put like maybe the end of S plus.
I think it's easier to say it's like a prerequisite effect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, definitely. Okay, let's do some weird ones. Let's do Guard. The Guard is kind of interesting because it can be useful sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like it can kind of stop, like if you're running into, let's say, like a unit using special acceleration, like Baby Hector or something, right? And he's like Armor Beacon, you can stop that from happening, right? Which is nice.
Right.
So it can stop her from being blown up. But at the same time, it's like not really the effect I'm looking for on a Gale Force unit, like almost ever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like obviously, as you said, it's nice, but for what she is trying to do, it's not as helpful as, say, a unit designed for tanking would be.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think this is like bottom of C. Like I wouldn't even really want to see this on her, to be honest. Okay, let's do a next one. Let's do a spicy one. And this one I'm going to throw towards you first. Extra movement on your armor. Edelgard has been known for this.
Yes.
Where would you put that at?
So, oh my goodness. My answer would be super different if they had Assault Troop as 300 SP instead of 240. Because right now, one of the main weaknesses Edelgard has in Arena is limited movement, unless you want to sack your scoring, which I guess you can, but it's not ideal.
Right.
If you were to run her with an armored unit, like a Grail armor unit that can run like Armor March, it's not as useful, but obviously you don't really want to do that in Arena. So, yeah, I think movement without a 300 SP movement C skill like Assault Troop 4 or something, I personally would really like that to be in S tier, I think. I think she really needs it in Arena. In Ether Raids, it's not as important, but in Arena, I'd say, like, unless IS releases a 300 SP Assault Troop skill, I would put it in S.
Okay, let's do another. Speaking of, let's go to Assault Troop, because we talked about that a little bit. So, what if she just got Assault Troop into her weapon? Like the charge effect, essentially. Kind of like Alir, right?
Right.
How good do you think that would be?
I think it'll be either as good as just +1 or Brave Edelgard movement, maybe slightly less, because I have used Summer Edelgard a lot, and even though it's in Ether Raids, there are times when the coordinate direction you are forced to go in really messes up with your clear.
Right.
And if I just had +1 movement from like Armor Stride or something, it would have made the clear a lot more cleaner or able to actually be done. So I don't think it's as good as just more movement, but I think obviously it's still super strong. Maybe on the low end of S, high end of A, one of those two.
Yeah, I definitely think it's like S, because the one thing I like about Assault Troop a lot with Summer Edelgard is like when they're trying to protect themselves with gravity traps, you can just hit that gravity trap and you don't care because you're warping. It doesn't even like affect your movement. So I like that a lot. But like that's not
Right.
always the case. But it is really nice when it happens. I'm like, I don't care. Go ahead, use your gravity trap. I'm just gonna go right through it.
That is true, and obviously you also like can have the extra range theoretically if you're like initiating that three movement range can be definitely very helpful as well.
Okay, let's jump into effectiveness. So effectiveness is like effective against armor, effective against flying. When it comes to Edelgard, I'm not sure exactly what they would do if they even did this. Like maybe against dragons and beasts. Like what if they like doubled down on that? What did you think of that?
If they do that, I think it would be very nice. It would help punch through a lot of, tanky units like Medius, or Dumas, or Murs, or there's a lot of dragon.
There are a lot of dragons, yeah.
I don't think it's something she necessarily needs, but obviously effective anything is always going to be very strong, and especially if it's like effective dragon or effective armor, that can really help her punch through a lot of the more bulky units. Even though it's not like my top choice for an effect, I'd still put it around like maybe A, I'd say.
Yeah, I think I could see it like the lower A side maybe.
Yeah, lower A.
Okay, here's an effect I actually could see them giving to her. And that is attack-based true damage. We've seen this on base Edelgard already so far. And I could definitely see that happening. I'm hoping it would be more than 10% though, right?
Yes,
like 10% is not that much. Like at least 15, if not 20. 20 is where it really like starts to like skyrocket. And then when it gets to 25, like with like Brave Alm, you're like, whew, you're hitting real hard. So I think that'd be really cool. I think this is a good effect, but I don't know, like, I'm not sure if like I would want the whole budget of the weapon going towards like just the true damage.
Right. And as you mentioned, like 10% is not a lot. Like if you think about like a unit with 80 speed, 80 attack, 10% of that is just 8 true damage, which is nice, but it's not like anything to be amazed about. So
yeah,
like
agree.
I do think it heavily depends on the percentage how good this true damage is. But I guess as a baseline, I think I agree with you that maybe around like A-ish, maybe S if it's like Brave Alm's levels.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I think it's like bottom of S if it's like a decent amount, and then it could be higher if it's like absurd. But I don't think they'll go absurd with it. Okay, let's jump into like one of the effects I'm not too high on, and that's healing. What do you think of healing?
It's awful. Like she's not a tank. Honestly, having healing in her refine would be a nerf to her because it would mess up Gale Force.
I completely agree. It's like with air, where it just like messes stuff
up.
up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, you have no idea how many times air's healing messed me up in Gale Force. Like, it is awful.
I just took it off of her. I was like, oh no, you don't get that anymore. Tamari is your new PRF weapon.
Yeah.
So I think we both agree healing is going to be like at the bottom of the tier list. We'll put it at the very bottom of C.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Okay, so let's do an effect that I think would be really cool, and that is anti-guard or tempo. So I guess we'll do anti-guard. So I think anti-guard is like one of the effects that has really become pivotal in the meta right now, just because of like how much specials have become so important, as that's like allowing you to do damage. That's how you like get the Gale Forces right. So having that anti-guard or half of tempo, I think could be really, really strong on Edelgard. And I think it wouldn't take that much budget if it's only half of tempo.
Yeah, I agree. Like, the thing about Edelgard, she really does want to proc Gale Force. And so I don't think half tempo would eat up too much of the budget. I obviously think that's not enough for her to make her consistent, but it is definitely, like Slaying, I think one of the prerequisite effects that she would really like to have, just to make everything a lot more easier and flexible to use.
I completely agree. Yeah. I think I put it in S. What about you?
I put it in S. Probably not S+, because...
Yeah, no. I don't think so either.
Yeah, there's better ones that we'll get to in a second.
We have tempo as well. I don't think we're going to talk about tempo much. I think tempo, like, obviously it's better than anti-guard, but I think if we got tempo, it would actually just take up, like, half of her weapon refine, and I don't think that's very good. So it's going to seem weird, but I would actually put tempo lower than anti-guard, which doesn't make sense, but it does if you understand, like, weapon budget.
And, like, it's not that she needs full temple anyways, right?
Right, exactly.
Like,
right. It's gonna be so weird. Someone's gonna click on this and not watch the video. Like, what the heck?
oh no, commenting before watching the video, the horror.
Let's do an interesting one, because I don't think we have this on many armors, really. Like, that's Canto. So Canto, I think you can technically get it with, like, the inheritable weapon, right? The inheritable sword, and then you get it on armor?
Yeah, I think so. Or you have, like...
Ellie would.
Does Tana give armors, Canto too?
Canto 1, yeah.
Yeah.
So that could be it. What would you think of Canto Edelgard?
I mean, it's an idea, a super fun idea. Canto definitely helps with like positioning and gale force and whatnot, and obviously in arena mobility in general is really good.
Like, yeah, it's like king. It's so good.
Yeah, but I don't think it's something that she like needs or would benefit that much from compared to like all the other effects we have. Like, it's fun, but it's not necessary.
I think it's like a B is where I'd put it at. Maybe like a low B, somewhere in there. It's like, it's good. I don't know. What do you think?
I'd probably put it like mid B, I'd say.
Mid B? Okay.
Yeah, because I can definitely see Canto being like very critical in certain situations, but probably not as many situations as other effects could have.
Right. Okay, let's do one. This one's interesting because this is heavy blade. So this is the blade effect. So this is only special acceleration on your attacks. What do you think of that one?
So this is not like just special acceleration in general, like Ultina or something. This is
This is just a blade. This is only on your hits.
Any sort of special acceleration on her weapon would be really good.
Right.
And you know, as you mentioned, proccing specials is the name of the game. I'm just not entirely sure how, and it really depends on the rest of her refine and the kit, but how like easy it would be to meet attack checks if she were to have this blade effect. I still think it would be really good though. So probably around S or A, I'd say.
I was thinking probably like the bottom of S maybe, because like it's a really good effect and she'd be happy to have it. But then you also have some hoops to jump through, which is kind of annoying.
Right. And especially these days, we have like a lot of units that just have special acceleration outright, and so
exactly. Okay, speaking of that, so I have this as the breath effect, but it's essentially just special acceleration. You get special acceleration on both hits in both phases, right? And I think this is like probably one of the best effects she could get. I think this is like the effect she needs. Like, this is like, if she doesn't get this, I'm gonna be sad, pretty much.
Yes, I will also be very sad, and we'll be sad together. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like, she would so love to get this. This is so good for her and for what she wants to do. Like, definitely S+. Like, I don't think there's any conversation on that.
Yeah, I think it's like probably towards the top of S. We might have to move it, but for right now, we'll put it there. That's like pretty much it. Okay, let's move on to bonus stats. So this isn't like the typical stats. This is like the Alir or like the Felix stats, where you just get a ton of extra stats for no reason, right? You're getting like plus 14 for no reason. Or even like Brave Edelgard, right? Brave Edelgard's refine is mostly just a ton of stats. So what would you think of her just getting like a ridiculous amount, like plus, I don't know, 13 attack, defense, and res or something like that?
I mean, that's what if she gets like plus 13 to those 3 stats, that's like 39 in stats, right?
It's a lot, yeah.
So I mean, yeah, I'll take that. That is super good for what she's trying to do. Like, at that point, like, those stats become super impactful. It will make her super hard to kill, and it will also make her punch really hard as well. I don't think it's as good as breath or slaying or anything like that.
Yeah, me either.
But if we're talking like literally plus 13 or even like just plus 10 to attack, defense, and res, I think that's probably around, maybe not the high end of S, maybe low end of S, high A.
Okay. I think I'd put it at like the top of A.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Where it's like, yeah, it's really, really good. And you're really happy to have it, but it's not like the thing that's gonna like break her.
Right, unless it's like plus 20 to attack.
Plus 100. You get 1 stat for every HP you have.
It's going to be like Halloween Zane, but like
Oh my gosh.
all in one.
Okay, so we're talking about armored unit, and when you talk about armored units, you have to talk about saves. Now, this is an interesting one. How would you feel if Edelgard got a PRF save in her weapon? You can choose either one, near save or far save. Which, like, do you think that would actually be good?
I don't think so. Like, the problem with her as a save unit is that, one, her preference B skill isn't really that good for tanking.
Mm-hmm.
And so you would probably need to swap out the B for something else if you were to run her as a save unit. And I think it's kind of anti-synergistic with the rest of her kit, at least from what we've seen so far. So I'm not particularly that high on her getting a preference save. And I'm going to be completely honest, I don't think IS will give her a save. If they do, like, IS has officially lost their marbles. Like, we thought they were losing their marbles for not getting an engage banner out sooner, and this would be the final nail in the coffin for that.
I agree. I think this is not a great effect on her. Where would you put it at, though?
Honestly, I'd put her save at C, to be perfectly honest. Like,
You think it's below guard or above guard?
Honestly, below guard, I'd
Okay.
say, because at least guard can be useful sometimes.
Okay, let's do a really powerful one. And we had to use my girl as the icon because it's a brave effect. And Edelgard and Altina are besties, so it's possible.
Oh yeah, besties.
Yep.
For sure. Yeah, so besties that they couldn't break through round 1 in AHR together.
And
So
they got sabotaged by other Edelgard. It's not their fault.
but yeah, I think both of us will probably agree that Brave is like S+ tier, right?
I think this is like the best effect she could get, probably.
Mm-hmm. Like, just make her a green summer Edelgard. Like, yeah, there you go, IS. Simple as that.
So I think the thing is like, even if you don't have a breath effect, if you can just quad, like you're probably gonna get some hits in. Especially if you have anti-guard, like you don't even need breath really that much then.
Right. Because like, as long as you get those 2 brave hits in, like you get 4 hits, and that procs Gale Force as long as you have like slaying. And so yeah, it makes it super consistent, as fellow summer Edelgard enjoyers would like to know.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good one. Yeah, let's talk about some true damage. And as good as attack-based true damage is, you know what's really, really better? Defense-based true damage. And what I mean by this is the Thos defense. So you've seen this on Brave Seliph, and you've also seen this like on Legendary Alm, right? And the reason why it's so good is because it scales off their defense. And so you're always doing damage based off how tanky they are. And also, there's no way for the enemy to like lower their own defense typically. So you can't like put like a minus attack debuff and affect that. So it's like really, really strong. So where do you think this would go?
I mean, I definitely like agree with you 100%. Like, even if the enemy can lower their defense, it's not like they actually want to, because that just means they take more damage the normal way, right?
Yeah.
And so having defense-based true damage based on the foe's defense just really helps with the longevity of the unit. I mean, it's one of the reasons why Legendary Alm is still a tank buster to this very day. Like, he can just shred through all these defensive units because that just makes him a little bit more powerful. And so I think it's better than the attack true damage. I don't think it's as warranted to be in S+, just because it's not as necessary for her to get, but it would definitely make her super powerful. So I definitely put that on the high end of S.
Let's do another true damage, this time based off your actual defense. So this is like the Asker Brave Dimitri effect. And I don't think they'd give this to Edelgard just because like Dimitri has it. They probably don't want to like share it between the two.
Right.
But if they did, I think it would be really, really strong, right? Like we've seen how good this is on like pretty much any unit who has it. So I'd be interested to see how you would use it on her, because I think like if she did get this, it could swap her from being a Gale Forcer to something completely different.
It would be interesting for sure. I mean, I think it's similar to like the attack true damage in that it's going to be very dependent on the actual percentage of the true damage that is. I think it's slightly worse because I think for what Edelgard wants to do, you want to stack attack unless she does get like acceleration outright.
Right.
Otherwise, you'd have to attack stat, and so you're not really benefiting that much from the defense-based true damage. I mean, it's still nice and it's still valuable, but I'd say it's probably a bit less than the attack true damage one.
Now let's go back and talk about damage reduction. Now, damage reduction is an interesting subject, right? Because there's lots of different types. So there's like the dragon wall, like this icon. There's also like damage reduction against the first hit, and then there's like, you know, the flat damage reduction as well.
Right.
So what damage reduction would you like to see on Edelgard, if any?
If I had to choose a damage reduction type, I'd probably go with, I don't know, that's kind of hard, but probably defense-based damage reduction, just because I don't think it would be thematic for her to get Dragon Wall, to be quite honest.
I agree, yeah.
And like, we haven't had like an attack-based damage reduction yet, so like, I guess by default defense-based damage reduction, but obviously damage reduction definitely helps her survive a lot of things, and that is definitely something that can be useful if she were to get counterattacked when she initiates. And so obviously that is very helpful, but I don't think it is an effect that I am particularly looking for when I think about like Edelgard's Refine. It's not something she particularly needs, I think, nor will it be that impactful for her trying to Gale Force. I honestly think around B is where I'd put damage reduction, I'd say.
I think that's fair. I think like it could help her a little bit just because like if she does want to get into 3 combats, right, and she's reliant on a guaranteed follow-up attack, then she will get hit a bit. So I think having a little bit could help, but it could also hurt her because it could stop her from getting into Wings of Mercy range.
Right. And yeah,
So,
that's the other thing. Like, it's not like Miracle that Brave Seliph has, where
exactly
it'll just let him survive by 1 and then boom, wham. Like, it'll definitely require calcs if you're going to be using her in Gale Force back in the good old days.
Yeah, we haven't done calcs and Gale Force in a minute. Well, not complicated ones at least.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about some special acceleration, but in a different way, and that's going to be Times Pulse. So we haven't seen this on an armor yet, but what if she got Times Pulse and she could actually have like a lower cooldown Gale Force, right? This isn't as good as Slaying, obviously, but if she had this enhanced Slaying, it'd be really good. And even without Slaying, it would still help a bit, right? Because then you don't have to run into the Quick Impulse Seal, which is nice.
Right. I mean, it is worse than Slaying, but for Gale Force, it's basically the same thing as Slaying, because all that matters is reducing that cooldown by 1. Obviously, having both would be super nice, but at least in terms of Gale Force, they're effectively the same thing. Just Times Pulse has some, like, it has to be active on turn 1, which means theoretically it could be false start, although I don't think there's really a scenario where that should happen, but, you know, you never know. And I guess also, there could be some pulse effects or whatnot that could theoretically mess with Times Pulse, but those are like very rare. Yeah, so definitely lower than Slaying, but I think they're functionally equivalent, I'd say.
Do you think like the bottom of S plus or an S or?
I think bottom of S plus would be nice, especially if like she manages to get both, because that would be absolutely amazing.
Right. Okay, let's talk about penalty neutralization. Our boy Brave Hector. Now this one's interesting because I think it's actually gotten worse, which is kind of crazy because it used to be like one of the best specs in the game. But now that we have like Legendary Robin, right, you kind of want to be able to get debuffed so you can do some crazy nonsense. Now that's not always the case, and it's still a good effect, but how good do you think this is for like a Gale Force Legendary Edelgard?
I think it's about average. Penalty neutralization for Gale Force specifically can help against like units and defenses that really debuff you, or I guess like if you are in armor school week or something like that, that could be helpful. But honestly, there are a lot of ways to get through or get around penalties these days, especially in like Ether Raids and Arena, that like, I don't think it's, as you mentioned, as great as it once was. And so I just say it's like average. Probably B, honestly. Yeah.
Okay, let's do one of our last effects, Lull. Lull's really interesting because Lull was really strong and then it kind of got tapered off for a while and now it's come back because like everyone's just stat sacking. So Lull's actually really good now. So I'm interested to see what you think about Lull on like an Edelgard Gale Force or just Edelgard in particular.
I think it's definitely good because we are sort of in like a buffing meta these days. Visible buffs are still very common, and especially in Arena, being able to go through that without having to rely on panic or whatnot is definitely super helpful and can definitely, like, against Catria balls that have like fortify armors or things like that,
right?
It can definitely help you get through those. I don't think it's as useful as some of the effects in S, but I think I'd put Lull as like an A effect.
I think so too. Okay, the final effect of this tier list is going to be an interesting one. And this is going to be Baby Ike's special jump effect. That's what I call it. It doesn't have an official name yet. But it's essentially the effect where you get half of your max cooldown before doing your first attack. What this does is lets you charge up your special, but it also gets around guard and like any other type of effect, like tempo or whatever else, right? It just lets you go into big specials. So I think this is a pretty cool effect. What do you think about this on Edelgard?
Okay, so remind me, I don't really know a lot about Young Ike, unfortunately, unlike you. So
how dare you?
Does this only work on like offensive specials that, you know, like do damage or something like that?
Right now it's offensive specials, yeah, but I'm just saying like the effect itself. So like let's say it worked with Gale Force.
Okay, if it worked with Gale Force, then this would be very strong. Like so just reducing the Gale Force count by half. Like if you had Slaying, that would just make Gale Force a 2 cooldown special. Yep. And you wouldn't even need acceleration anymore.
Yep.
So like if it worked like that, that would actually be insane for her. Obviously, if they were to do that, and that's a big if, and there's questions about like exactly what specials this would be affected by. But if it works for Gale Force, then I'd definitely put it like S+ or something, because that would actually be insane.
I think so too. I think it's better than Breath. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, like that just removes the need for Breath entirely.
Okay, and with that, our tier list is complete. Now, DTM didn't know, but there was a slight trap here. And the truth was, I just wanted to get Altina and Ike into S+ tier on the top, and I succeeded, so. Woo!
I can't believe I fell for it. I didn't know you were this kind of person, Oblivion. I trusted you.
Oh, I had to make sure Tellius was on top of the phone tier list.
I should have known all along.
Okay, anyways, this is our tier list. So this is some of the effects you should be looking for on Legend of Edelgard when she does get that refine. Now, obviously, if she got the full top row, she would be completely broken. I don't expect that to happen. That typically doesn't happen. Usually, it's like a mix of like A, B, and C, right? Or some S's, or A, B, and like S maybe. And then maybe a C's thrown in there. I don't know. They kind of do that. So we'll have to see what she actually ends up with. But I think there's a lot of powerful effects that Edelgard could get. Anyways, this has been our legendary Edelgard tier list. This has been a ton of fun. So thank you so much for coming on. You know, I had to get my expert on here to make sure that it's all accurate because, you know, yeah, I'm a little bit biased towards Blue One, so I might have moved it around a bit.
Yeah, and you know, I'm here to rep the Adel gang, and again, this is always a blast being able to discuss with you about all things Fae, and especially this really anticipated refine and remix. Hopefully ends up well.
I'm hoping to. Hopefully it ends up good and we just have like some fun, more Gale Force stuff. Because we already have so much Gale Force toys, so like why not get more Gale Force toys, right?
Exactly. This is the time for Gale Force to finally rise from unpopularity to be the one true way everyone does Ether Raids. For sure. Definitely.
That would be cool. That would be very cool. Once again, I'd like to thank all my members for all their support. These videos wouldn't be possible without them. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe, not only to my channel, but DTM's as well. DTM does amazing Ether Raids content. And obviously, if you want to see Edelgard, that is the place to go.
Oh, thank you. Definitely appreciate it.
Okay, everybody. Catch you later. Bye.
Bye.